Former President John Mahama on Thursday addressed a number of issues of national interest on his social media accounts, including Facebook. His address touched on the financial sector cleanup exercise, which led to the revocation of the license of over 300 financial firms in the country. The address also looked at the commissioning of the 307 ambulances by President Akufo-Addo, concerns of the white paper on the Milshot Commission report, and the introduction of the new Citi notes. During Thursday's briefing by John Mahama, he expressed dissatisfaction about the inauguration of the 307 ambulances, saying it was needless, especially when health facilities are still deficient. Responding to that, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah says his comments must be ignored.
Is the former president suggesting that at the time that his party was demanding that the ambulances be distributed now, they had no faint idea of where they would take people to when they are distributed? So it was just a demand that distribute the ambulances now, just an attempt to create some disaffection or embarrassment? Or is it that now these comments are the ones that are just politically thrown out there just to try and cause some disaffection for what government has done? Indeed, if you will recall, on the 23rd of April 2012, the Mahama administration, the Mills Mahama administration at the time, announced that they were going to bring in some 600 ambulances. At the time they made that announcement, not all hospital projects across the country had been completed. So in their calculation, when they were bringing in their 600 ambulances, where were the ambulances going to take people? And at the time that they were demanding that the ambulances should be released, where were the ambulances going to take people? I think it's quite clear that this is a good addition to the healthcare infrastructure of our country.
Responding to concerns raised by John Mahama on the grand ceremony of inaugurating the ambulances, the information minister said the former president did worst during his tenure in office.
Again, the former president makes an argument that there's no need to commission things or create fanfare, because he says when they brought in some of the ambulances, they did not commission them or do a ceremony to dispatch them. But of course, if you bring in ambulances that were not fit for purpose, like those 30, how are you going to have a ceremony to dispatch those ambulances? Even the state could not accept them. How are you going to have a ceremony to dispatch or commission those ambulances? So we understand why they couldn't do that. But for example, when they brought in their fire tenders, they had a ceremony to dispatch them. When they brought in their Uniado vans, that was just about 10 or so. How many were they? About 10 or so. Even 10, not 20, not 50, not 100, not 150, not 200, not 300. Just about those 10 or so Uniado. They had a whole ceremony to create public awareness about what they had done and how they thought it will help people. Now, all of a sudden, he has turned around 360 that there's no use in that. I just chanced on photos this morning of the former president distributing, I think, saucepans to some market women. Photos of the former president commissioning taps. These are taps that he's commissioning. Photos of the former president commissioning, what is this? Borehole drilling machines. Borehole drilling machines. So what has changed between then and now that now the former president turns around 360? And even the things that he believed in the beginning, now he says, you know, all of a sudden there are things that no government. I think we should put the politics aside.
During the former president's address on Facebook, he said he was doubtful that the government could pay all depositors who have had their monies locked up. But Kojo Oppong Nkrumah says government has already made available 15 billion cedis to be paid depositors in this crisis. He further noted that President Akufo-Addo has instructed that those depositors who were not covered in the initial plan be paid subsequently.
If he has the opportunity to govern, he will pay the deposits of depositors. Well, as I'm sure you are aware, the government has already made about 15 billion cedis available to pay a good chunk of the deposits. And just around 23rd, 24th December, His Excellency the President instructed that the outstanding ones that were not covered by the initial underwriting by government should also be paid. So what is the new idea that the former president is bringing in? There's a government that has paid 15 billion already, that seeks to spend another 8 or 9 more billion, is the one that cannot conclude it. But the one in whose term he couldn't pay for, whether it was DKM or any other institution that collapsed at the time, he is the one who now has a credible payment option. I'm not sure we were able to buy that. Even for the 70 companies that had their licenses revoked in 2016, the question should be asked, and I'm sure you, our colleagues in journalism, will ask the question: were there any payments made to anybody for any sort of losses there? how come this is the person who now says that he is going to pay after the sitting administration has paid 15 billion and seeks to pay some more? So it is quite clear that these are attempts to, throw some sand in the eyes of well-meaning Ghanaians who may be undecided as we get ready for the 2020 policy conversations, and we believe that it is important to draw attention.
Also on the issue of the white paper on the Milshot Commission's report on the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election, the Information Minister says government has referred the reforms to the respective authorities for implementation.
The report was published. Government explained the parts of the report that it accepted, the parts of the report that it disagreed with in accordance with our constitutional provisions. And the various state agencies that are tasked with implementing parts of it going through their own processes of implementation. I'm sure they'll be best placed to tell us how far they've come with implementing the various parts of it, whether it's the police, whether it's the Attorney General's department, etc. They will all be best placed to tell us how they have come with the various parts that they are implementing.